Okay, now that we have a basic, very basic floor plan drawn, what we're going to do is start drawing a building section. And we're going to do what I call a transverse building section, which is basically if I took a gigantic chainsaw and I cut this building in half and I looked at it in this direction, what would I see? And probably isn't making a whole lot of sense to you right at the moment, but if you follow along, it's going to make a lot more sense. Okay, to make this transverse building section, all I have to do, first of all, I'm going to just draw a line straight up from my wall, and I'm going to put a horizontal line in there that represents the ground. I'm going to clean this up a little bit, and at this corner right here is where I'm going to start working. The first thing I'm going to draw is a floor joist. Now this is just going to be a shed that's sitting on the ground. So I'm going to draw a floor joist that is a 2x6 floor joist, and the actual height of that would be 5.5 inches. So I can just draw a line from that corner up 5.5 inches, and then I'll just go over an undetermined distance, looking something like that. On top of the floor joists, now this is getting a little bit into construction. You're not going to need to know this specifically right now, but basically on top of the floor joist we would have a subfloor, which would be made out of plywood or OSB, and the thickness is going to be 3/4 of an inch. This is what you have to pay attention to right now. So the easiest way to get a 3/4 inch thick piece of plywood drawn there is to simply offset this line 3/4 of an inch up. I'll draw a line at the end to connect it. And then on top of the plywood, I'm going to have my wall structure. My wall structure is going to be this. I'm going to have what we call a sole plate, which is the bottom of the wall, a 2x6 wall, or 2x4 wall, I'm sorry. I'm going to draw up 1.5 inches, I'll type in 1.5, and over 3.5, and down. And then I'm going to draw a line across the corners to represent that I put this X in my plate, which is a 2x4 plate, to represent that I'm cutting through it. Anytime you see an X that's representing wood, it's showing that it's being cut through. On top of this plate, I'm going to put my stud. And my stud wall, or my stud itself, is going to be 92-5/8, or 92 5/8 of an inch long. And I'm just going to go over 3.5 inches, and I'm going to come down here to where I started and connect that. Then on top of my wall, I have a double top plate. So I'm going to copy these 3 lines, and this is very critical that you copy it from the right place. I'm going to copy it from this corner. So I'm going to choose that end point, and whenever I copy it to the top of my wall, I'm going to pick that line, or that corner right there. And then I'm going to do another one at that end point. I can simply draw a line from there to there, there to there, and I have a double top plate. From this point, I'm going to draw a very basic roof. And the roof that I have is going to be a 5/12 roof pitch. Very simple to make here. All I have to do is draw a line this corner here, up 5, over 12, and then I can type C, enter, to close that. And that is the pitch of my roof. I'll erase those two lines, and I'll offset this line 3.5. I want it to come out 12 inches, have a 12-inch overhang, so I offset again, and I'm going to offset 12 inches. At this point, I can fill it. And I'm going to choose that line and that line to fill it. And then I'm going to choose this line. I'm going to do fill it again. I'm going to choose this line and that line. And now it's starting to shape up like a real wall. Then I'm going to draw a line over undetermined distance and offset it up 3.5. I'll trim this out, and what I have is a very basic wall section. Now to complete this, we're going to use the mirror command. So I'm going to type in MI, or I can pick it off the modify menu, mirror, and whenever it asks me to select objects, I'm going to do this selection window and choose all those. And now it's asking me to specify the first point of my mirror line. I'm going to choose the exact midpoint of this wall. And you can see my midpoint O-snap isn't coming up. So I could stop what I'm doing, go back and set up my O-snaps to include my midpoint. I can also hold down Shift, right click, and choose it. Now I have a couple different options. If I point my mouse outward like that, it's going to mirror it downward. That's not what I want to do. I want to point my mouse straight up, and I want to make sure that I'm not picking any object. I don't want to snap to anything. So I get way out here where I'm definitely not going to pick anything, and make sure my ortho is on so I don't end up with a crooked wall. I can hit F8 to turn my ortho on, and I choose a point. And now it's asking you to erase source objects. The default is no, so I'm going to hit enter. I do not want to delete the source objects. At this point, there's just a little bit of cleanup work left. First of all, I'm going to get rid of this construction line. To join these two lines together, I'm going to use the join command. I can simply type in join, enter, and it asks to select source object. And then it asks to select joins to select lines to join to source. So I choose that one, hit enter, and I'll do this command again. So any lines that would run into each other that are in the exact same plane, I can use the join command to join them. For these lines, I'm going to use the fillet command. Make sure that the radius is still 0, and I choose them like that. And if you remember back, our section was basically cutting through this wall and looking that direction. If you cut through this whole building, at this point you would see this wall, at this point you'd see that wall, and across the middle here you would see the roof structure, the joists, and the floor. This is a basic transverse building section.